Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is Cinco de Mayo, and we are doing all things Cinco de Mayo today. So I have a paleo grain-free homemade tortilla that we're going to be making, as well as paleo seasoning, taco seasoning, and fajitas. And I'm doing this a vegetarian meal, but you can add all sorts of meat, and I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to do that later on. But this is going to be a meal full of color and rich, vibrant colors, and they will all be just full of flavor. So just because you try to eat healthy, it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice flavor. You can really add in lots of spices and seasonings and fresh herbs to really spice up your meals. So that's what we're gonna do today. I wanna check my camera. I'm having trouble with my comments. So let me give it a try. Well, we will see how this goes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with my fajitas first because I want those to start cooking while we move on to our homemade grain-free tortillas. So I have a saucepan right here that I am going to be warming up. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of my pan. You can use olive oil, you can use avocado oil, you can use coconut oil, they'll all do great. And then I have an entire onion that I have chopped up that I am going to place in the bottom of my pan. So I'm gonna mix up that onion here and let it start to cook. I have my burner up to medium heat, and I'll show you through the course of what we're doing. I'll adjust my camera so you can take a better peek at this. I'm home alone today, so I don't have somebody helping me with my camera, but we are going to have a great meal anyway. So what I have is an entire onion that I've cut up. I also have about 5 cups of bell peppers. And I didn't have any green ones. There were no green ones at the store, but I have red and I have orange and I have yellow in here. So we're going to be using all of those that I've sliced up. I like to keep them in nice long strips so that they're nice and hearty when you make your taco. So I have about 5 cups of those. And then I have 2 cups of cut mushrooms. And again, I'm going to leave them nice and large. Some other vegetables that you can actually add to this are some tomatoes, if you want to add some tomatoes to it. Like I said, the green bell peppers. You can add some chilies to it if you'd like to add some chilies. Sometimes I'll even add some cabbage. I'm a fan of cabbage. Not everybody in my family loves cabbage, so I'm not using cabbage today. I wanted to keep it simple and limited ingredients to show you that you can have an awesome dinner with, like I said, limited ingredients. So I'm just gonna stir those onions, just starting to break them down. Now you don't wanna cook them too much before you move on to the bell peppers. They're gonna take about the same length of time to cook. And again, I have my burner over medium heat. Things to keep in mind is when you're using olive oil is you don't want to have the olive oil with the pan temperature really hot. It changes the chemistry of the oil and it becomes not healthy for you. So it's really important to make sure that you cook it at a lower heat, lower to medium heat, if you are using olive oil. So keep that in mind. As I said, you can use avocado oil. You can also do coconut oil. Those are both really good sources to try and use. Okay, so my onions are starting to just change slightly. And while they're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and add my 5 cups of mixed, colorful, bright vegetables in my pan. Now I'm holding off on my mushrooms because mushrooms don't take very long to cook. The other thing to keep in mind with mushrooms is that they start to break down and soften and become really soggy and watery. Do you ever notice when you cook mushrooms that sometimes they're nice and firm and sometimes they're soggy mess? Well, part of that has to do with how you're cooking them or maybe how they're prepared. And keeping in mind that you want to make sure that you are not overcooking them and that you're not stirring them too much. It's really important to just lightly cook them. So I'm going to put those in at the very end. And while that's cooking, I'm just going to drop my camera down so you can see. Don't those look delicious? All right, while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and move on to my seasoning because we are going to want to add some seasoning into our packet. I'm going to do a general taco seasoning, which is really great. So I have a glass jar, and I wrote this down in my recipe book because my recipe book is going to be coming out in the fall. So I'm writing them all down collectively with all of my great notes and tips that I want to make sure that you get. So I'm going to refer to that so I make sure I don't miss anything. So I am going to first start with my garlic powder. And my garlic powder, I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Actually, I'm going to do a tablespoon, sorry. A tablespoon of garlic powder. And you're making enough for this to last more than just today. That's the best part, is that you can keep this in your pantry. Okay, we're going to do a teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to do a couple cranks in here to what I think is going to be a teaspoon. Great. While that's going, I'm just going to give my veggies just a quick stir over here. I love the color. It's just so vibrant and beautiful. And you don't want to overcook them, right? You want your vegetables to be firm. And the more we overcook things, then it really takes out a lot of the nutrients and the things that we really want from the food. So really think about making sure that you don't overcook your food. Okay, so I have my garlic powder, I have salt. I'm going to use my chili powder now. And I'll put in my chili powder. And then I have some cumin that I'm going to keep putting in. And my cumin, I'm going to use a tablespoon of cumin as well. I love cumin. Now, a lot of these herbs and spices you might have in your garden, and so grab them. But I like to make an entire batch of the taco seasoning because then you have it on hand for Taco Tuesday. You can use it for, just various mixes. I like to make it in rice, in cauliflower rice, if I'm going to do like a bowl, which I'm going to talk to you about as well today. So I have my chili powder, my cumin. I'm going to use some oregano, and my oregano is 1 teaspoon of oregano. So much flavor comes from herbs and spices. And like I said, a lot of times we think that we have to sacrifice flavor when we're trying to eat healthy, and that is not the case. Really be creative. I found that some of my best recipes have happened by accident by simply just adding ingredients together. So be creative, don't hold back. It really can be fun. Okay, so we have our oregano. The next thing is some paprika. And we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of paprika. You decide how much you'd like that to be. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Like I said, I like this to be nice and flavorful. All right. And the last ingredient is going to be some cayenne. Now I'm just going to do a couple dashes of cayenne, and you want to be realistic with your family and how much that how spicy you like it. Okay? So here is my seasoning mix. And I'm going to use it on my fajitas. Let's give those a stir. Now they're getting close to being ready. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my mushrooms. So we'll have our mushrooms. We'll start to cook those down, and I'm gonna let those cook down just a smidge before I decide to add in my seasonings. Okay. Now, while we are waiting for those vegetables to cook down, we're gonna start with our grain-free tortillas. So my main flour that I use for grain-free is cassava flour. There are a lot of other types. I like cassava flour. I like the taste of it. I also personally am not able to do almond flour, and almonds very many nuts, and so this is a great alternative. It is a yucca root, and it is very versatile. You can use it 1-to-1 ratio in almost all recipes. So you'll notice that most of my recipes will come from cassava flour and tiger nut flour, but that you can use alternate grains for most of them as well. So today we're using cassava flour, and I'm going to take 3/4 cup of cassava flour. I'm going to place that in my bowl. This is going to make, depending upon the size of your tortillas, it's going to make anywhere from 6 to 8 tortillas. Okay, so there I have my cassava flour. Also, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, so we'll just kind of estimate my salt again. And then I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Make sure that you get a really good olive oil. It makes all the difference in the recipes that you cook. I'm going to turn this around in just a minute. I have a small little space over here. Let's give those fajitas a stir, get those mushrooms cooking. It's coming. It smells so delicious. I don't know how I'm going to wait until dinner to eat this. Okay, so our olive oil, we have our cassava flour, we have our salt, we have 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of water. And start to mix that up. Sometimes it needs a smidge more water, so have a little bit extra handy. Cassava flour is really, if you haven't used it, it tends to be really light. It's very light grain, and so it works a little differently than regular traditional flour. Okay, so once you have those ingredients really mixed up nicely, I'm just going to use my hands, and I'm going to knead the rest of it together because I'm going to start to make it into small little tortillas. And again, this is going to make about 6 to 8 tortillas. You can see my nice little ball of dough here. So I'm just going to take a small piece. Now, you can use a rolling pin, you can use a tortilla press. I'm really going to show you that it doesn't take a lot to do this. So I'm just going to use my counter, I'm just going to press it out. Sometimes we think we have to have a lot of gadgets to make it perfect, and we really don't. Believe me, I am a gadget person. I love to cook, so I have a lot of gadgets, but I really want to show you that you don't have to have them in order to cook, okay? So I have this nice paper thin tortilla. I'm going to place it on my griddle here. Give my fajitas another stir, and we'll let that tortilla cook. So it doesn't take very long. You're going to leave it on for a few minutes before you turn it, and I'm going to go ahead and add my seasonings into my fajita mixture now. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of our Paleo seasoning in the pan, and then we'll just toss that. Oh, it smells delicious. I have my griddle on medium heat. And then I'll move on to start making my others. So I know this year, what Cinco de Mayo might look a little different. I know it happens to be generally a day when a lot of people go out. I might have parties and you might get out. It's a little different this year. Doesn't mean that you can't still have a fun Cinco de Mayo, right? So we're still gonna celebrate, have a great dinner with our fajitas and our homemade grain-free tortillas. And like I said, you can make these any size that you like. So you can try it out, see if you like them a little thicker, if you like them a little thinner. You can use, as I said, you can use a tortilla press, or you can use, you know, a rolling pin and do 2 sheets of wax paper, roll it out. I am simply just pressing it in my hands and then just pressing it on the counter. Nice, and like I said, it's based on your desired thickness. All right. I'm going to place that one on here. I'm going to test the one that's in the back, and I'm going to flip it. It's starting to be nice and golden brown. And then with these fajitas, as I said, you can do chicken if you wanted to. So you could use my garlic, my 20 roasted garlic shredded chicken. You can do steak fajitas. You can just keep them with veggie fajitas. I'm doing veggies today. And then I like to top it with some crunch. So I have some shredded cabbage that I'm going to top it on. You can put lime on top of it. Just really mix it up. Have another one right there. Let's stir those veggies up again. And like I said, you don't want them to overcook. So I'm going to turn my burner off. I'm going to show you how delicious those are. Look at those fajitas. Doesn't that look delicious? And then we will continue to cook our tortillas back here. So you can do nice big ones. You can do small ones. They don't take very long on the burner. Just gonna smash them down a little bit. And here's my shredded cabbage. You can do it yourself like in your Cuisinart. I like to actually buy it in a bag at Whole Foods because I like to use this on a lot of things. I'll make rolls and I'll put them on it. I'll throw it in sometimes to a breakfast casserole. You can put them in egg soufflés for breakfast, tacos, top them on top of salads for an extra added fun layer. It has cabbage, it has red cabbage, green cabbage, it has carrots in it, so I love that. I have some guacamole back here, some limes. Those are all going to be delicious to top it with. Those tortillas are almost done. So what's your tradition? Do you have a tradition? Or not even a tradition? Will you be celebrating today, Cinco de Mayo, with some sort of fun recipe? What will it look like for you? I'd love to hear what you might be fixing. I'll be posting these recipes later today, so check back and I'll share that with you. And if you want to follow me at Whole Living with Wendy on Instagram, I have a link there where you can download some recipes. You can go to wendypurviance.com where my blog hosts literally hundreds and hundreds of recipes that are family friendly and delicious. So you want to make sure, sometimes with the tortillas, they start to bubble a little bit. So go ahead and you can pop the bubbles in. And I think this back one is done. These are taking a little longer than they typically do. I left them a smidge thicker than I usually do. I usually do them a little bit thinner. But as you can see, here is your nice grain-free tortilla. Check back later and I will show you some of my fajitas already beautifully decorated. So anyway, I'd love to see what you come up with today and what variation and creation you did with this fajita mix and what your day looks like. So thanks for joining me, Whole Living with Wendy. And as I said, if you liked this and you really want more recipes, you can go follow me at Whole Living with Wendy or wendypurviance.com. Head on over to Instagram or YouTube. Thanks for joining me. And like I said, I'll give you a finished product preview later.